after dark, and it is our pleasure to introduce our fellow horror hosts, who will then induct people into the Horror Host Hall of Fame.
First up is gonna be very good friends of ours. But before I introduce them, I'd like to say, welcome to HorrorHound Week. First up, to introduce a really, really great horror host is Jack and Jacqueline.
Halloween
Jack.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? It's great to be here at HorrorHound, and it's great to have the Horror Host Hall of Fame going on. You know, like all of the horror hosts over here and all the degree Am I supposed to start dancing, or? Okay, anyway, as I was saying, you know, as a collective, the horror hosts always get together and we always talk, and the horror host fans always talk, and we have to admit that here in Ohio, and everybody's heard it before, this is the mecca for horror hosts. I mean, there's a lot of great legends, a lot of great horror hosts and icons that have come out of here. Now, having grown up in the New Jersey, New York area, and being near New York, which is supposed to be the second biggest hub of entertainment in the world, we weren't as fortunate as you guys. We really did not have a lot of horror hosts. Of course, we had our granddaddy, Jacqueline, great Jacqueline, still alive, living legend, okay? But after him, we were very horror host deprived, or depraved. Right. Now, of course, of course, we had, like everybody did across the country, and this guy really wants me to dance. That maybe made me lose track of where I was. So, like I said, in our area of the country, we were deprived of horror hosts, and of course, everybody around the country remembers, and it was in your city, in your state, everybody had a chiller theater, which we had in New York. That came on sometime about 1962. Now, that was hosted by Jacqueline, very, very briefly, but it was basically and I can say this slow, hostless, because last time I said it sounded like hostess. I don't want you guys thinking of Twinkies. It was a hostless show. But then WNEW-TV in New York had decided to compete with them in the late 60s. And for a year or two, they were hostless. But then, one Saturday night at 8:30, all us monster kids in New York and New Jersey turned on the TV, and we saw the first inductee tonight into the Horror Host Hall of Fame class of 2014, Dr. Creed. Mr. Creed, I'm sorry. The Creed. Now, I know a lot of people haven't heard about him because, you know, horror hosting is very regional, and especially around in our area. But he was everything to us because it was such, we were so barren of horror hosts. When he came on, he was a breath of fresh air. It was like gold. It was golden for us. Very much like Lordy, he was very basic. He would sit in a darkened studio, very brightly lit, and he had sunglasses and wore a cheesy costume. Now, can you imagine a guy entertaining people wearing sunglasses and a cheesy costume? But he was absolutely everything to us, and he was very minimal. He was the type of host who had an excellent speaking voice because he was an announcer, very much like Arnie Goulardi Anderson, and he used his wit to do it. No special effects, nothing. And he was played by Lou Steele. Now Lou Steele, again, like Goularte, very similar, was an announcer. He actually started when he was 21 years old, and he became an announcer for the Armed Forces Radio Network. And a little bit of history, when he was in Korea, he was the one that announced to all the troops that President Truman had recalled their commander-in-chief, General Douglas MacArthur. So he was the one that announced that over Armed Forces Radio. So once he got out of Korea, he came back to Brooklyn, New York, and he started working for WNEW in the late 50s, and he was doing booth announcing and all kinds of things, and like I said, they decided to make him the Creep. And it was a wonderful experience for us because, again, it was very minimal, but it was the best that we had had. You know, we had never seen any horror host. You know, where he was different from everybody else, he had really gotten the fans involved. He did a lot of contests, like he would have a title contest where he would have the title of a movie, say The Mummy's Curse, he'd flash one at a time, and you'd have to guess the whole thing, and then you call in and he would actually give you a phone call. But one of my favorites, and that's because I was personally involved in this, is he had a caption contest where he would tell everybody the shows that were coming up, the movies that were coming up. And I never realized how cool my third grade teacher was. Because she actually watched the show, she actually sent in a caption, and she won a prize. And her caption was, 4 Skulls and 7 years ago. What movie was that?
Shakespeare.
What'd you say? Hey, very good. You win. You get nothing, but you win.
You get bragging rights.
You get bragging rights. But it was a great personal experience because then we would go to class and all the kids were like excited because they figured, oh, she's going to get like this 7-foot Frankenstein, or she's going to get, you know, a bust of Dracula or something like that. And she got a model of the Invisible Man. Cool.
It wasn't an empty box.
No. You guys remember the Invisible Man? He was half a guy, he was plastic, and he had the lungs, and you could see everything, and, you know.
It's the visible.
You know, being the psychotic, twisted kids we were, I mean, I wanted to see blood and gore and pus and everything coming out of everybody. So we were a little disappointed, but it was a great experience. It was a very personal experience, and I got to see him for many years. At one time, I don't know if anybody remembers this magazine, Monster Times? Well, this was out of New York, and they had done a lot of articles on the Creep. And one time they were going to take him off the air, and Monster Times had done a petition to get him back on the air, so they did. So he ran from 70 to 75. Unfortunately, I found out he came back in the 80s, and I missed it. I guess I was interested in other things at that time. But just like good horror hosts, he kind of disappeared after that. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2001, but had been doing microphone and voiceover work right up until he died at the age of 72. Now, a lot of us rely on the internet. You know, there's a lot of horror hosts out there now that you can see on the internet. Unfortunately, there is no Dr. Creep footage there is no Creep footage that is available right now. So if anybody out there knows of any, please, I mean, I would love for somebody to see it. I keep the faith that one of these days, someone's going to release some footage of him so everybody can see what a wonderful host he really was. And he was my personal host, and we are very honored to induct the Creep into the 2014 Horror Host